Okay, so remember when Nebuchadnezzar besieged Judah? One of the things that happened during the besiegement is that he took some of the sacred items from
the temple.
From the temple.
Yeah.
He's gone, he sent someone to go get these items, and he's basically just using these items in his huge feast to like show off all of his like wine and his food and this and that. So he's using these kind of holy items.
They're just drinking out of them.
Yeah, they're sacred items. Now they are being like utilized and physically disrespected. It happens in verse 5. In the same hour, so they drank wine, praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. So with the actual items that they were essentially defiling, they started to praise false gods or, made up gods of silver, gold, iron, wood. They were praising these gods of these items that they were using. And in that same hour that all of this kind of debauchery was going on, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote, and then the king's countenance changed. All of a sudden, I imagine that like he's as white as a ghost,
Yeah, he turned pale.
He turned pale, his thoughts troubled him so that the joints of his hips were loosened and his knees knocked against each other. So it's just painting a picture of him. All of a sudden, he's completely freaked out. This ghost hand just appears and writes something on the wall. At once, the king gathers all the wise men, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers is something that my King James Bible says, the soothsayers. The king spoke, saying to these wise men, whoever reads this writing and tells me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck, and he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. So basically he's just like, someone please tell me what is going on. What do these words mean?
And you'll essentially be given the highest honor.
Yeah, you'll be given honor, and I'll give you things to wear. The king's wise men came. No one could read the writing. All the same stuff happened as before. No one could do the things.
What these wise men knew, because they don't really know any of the things that the king wants them to know.
Here's what's really awesome. Verse 10, the queen, because of the words of the kings and his lords, came to the banquet hall. And she spoke, saying, there is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy God. So she even knows like how God resonates with Daniel. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom. Oh, maybe that's why I kind of just assumed that he was. But
there is a note that it says father may just mean ancestor.
Ancestor, yeah. Absolutely. I just kind of was like, oh, his successor.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, your father the king made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. So then, obviously, Belshazzar has Daniel come in, and he says, I've heard that you have the Spirit of God in you. Please read the things on the wall. There were 3 words on the wall, Min, Tekel, and Perez. 3 of them individually mean like phrases, or they have ideas. The first word that was written on the wall is interpreted as God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. The second one,
Tekel? You have been weighed on the scales and found wanting.
And then Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. So Daniel was able to interpret the things on the wall, which basically was just a prophecy saying that Belshazzar's kingdom was going to die.
True.
Die out.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
And then that's what happens. That night.
That very night.
Ends with... That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom. Really quick, before Daniel interpreted that for him, he kind of calls him out, and I really love this part.
Daniel calls out King Belshazzar?
Yes, he does.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, what verse? Tell me, what are you reading?
Okay, verses 18 through 21 talk about how Nebuchadnezzar recognized God's glory and that he acknowledged the Most High God. And then in verse 22 he says, but you, his son, O Belshazzar, have not humbled yourself, though you knew all this. Instead, you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives and your concubines, drank wine from them. You praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor the God who holds in his hand your life and all your ways. Therefore he sent the hand that wrote the inscription. And then he explained what the inscription meant. So I feel that's bold of Daniel to start out like that with a king who he hasn't as much built the relationship with this king necessarily.
Right.
While the people in the kingdom may recognize his wisdom, it seems this guy didn't even know who he was.
Right.
It was his wife who knew.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a bold way to go about it, but that's Daniel. He boldly proclaims God.
Kind of sets up our next chapter a little bit, because Darius is the one that receives the kingdom right after Belshazzar, and
Right.
Darius actually has an affection for Daniel.
True.
And we'll find out how
Good
that all
segue.
works out in chapter 6.